Society tells you to be kind, to put others first. But no one warns you. Being too nice can destroy you. You give, and end up drained, broke, and taken for granted. What if kindness of the wrong kind is secretly sabotaging you? Let's expose the truth. I'm on a mission to uncover all the ways that being too nice can sabotage your life. And one of those ways pertains to expectations, or as they're known in the world of psychology, unrealistic expectations. It means exactly what you think it does. And of course, as a certified people pleaser in recovery, I've done my fair share of bending over backwards for others. Right? Just off the top of my head, I've been the go-to friend for emergencies, the office pushover, and the family peacekeeper, so I know what I'm talking about. But when it comes to being nice, whether you're just looking for approval or trying to avoid conflict, it is worth learning that being too nice isn't necessarily the same as being kind. And so, without further ado, let us metaphorically put on our assertiveness hats, as I uncover ways that being too nice is ruining your life and how to fix it. You know, when I was out there for the first time in the real world, living the people-pleasing lifestyle in my first job, the first confusing thing that I noticed is that my co-workers seemed to take advantage of my willingness to help. What do you mean by that? Well, here's how expectations work in the world of the overly nice. We'll get into the psychology later. In the mind of a people-pleaser, the floor where I enter the office and offer to take on extra work is known as the ground floor of niceness. When you enter this mindset, you press N to stay nice, or E to exceed expectations, or S to sacrifice your own needs. And you get my drift. In reality, it's a little bit different, because that same floor where I enter the office and offer to help as you aren't necessarily seen as exceptional by others. It's just expected, and this is usually denoted in their behavior by taking your kindness for granted. So the next time you offer to help, they expect more, and then even more. And then I'm a little bit hazy after that, and then you get to your breaking point. And this is where those personal boundaries really take shape. Or should I say, lack thereof, because there's one key rule. On the whole, nice people tend to have weaker boundaries than their more assertive counterparts. And the reason for this, as we all know, is that nice people often fear disappointing others. But it's also because setting boundaries feels uncomfortable at first, and so we just sort of avoid it. In fact, awkwardly. A tiny office cubicle was where I first realized I needed to set boundaries with my boss, and they were asking me to stay late for the third time that week, in a space about the size of this studio, which surprisingly, given that I am often dubbed the office's finest doormat, is not that big. And at the best of times, I don't like saying no to people, but being squashed in a cubicle with mounting deadlines was the second most horrifying experience of my life. And I know what you're thinking. And being squashed in the elevator with my boss, on the way up to receive yet another urgent task. But the next time we met in a team meeting, I sure did have a chuckle. At least I think I did. I couldn't hear myself over the sound of my newfound assertiveness. You see, setting boundaries, like self-respect or personal time, are just bigger priorities for emotionally healthy individuals. I mean, they'd have to be, right? Especially given what we've discovered on this channel about the differences in stress levels between people pleasers and those with healthy boundaries. And of course, boundaries are not the only place where you'd draw the line. In addition to work, relationships, and in desperate times, family gatherings, which should prompt nobody to ask me about the Christmas dinner incident of 2018. There is also self-care. I know what you're thinking. Yes, self-care is important for everyone. Well, firstly, that's absolutely true. And secondly, that's not where I was going with this. I was actually going to mention the importance of self-care for nice people. Because while for most people, and helping others are more or less balanced. This is often not the case for the overly nice. To go from neglecting yourself to prioritizing, you often have to kind of step up, because taking care of yourself is more important than you think. There's one thing to remember. Starting is easy, but maintaining it when your people-pleasing tendencies kick in, it could lead to an unintentionally hilarious cycle of burnout and recovery. In fact, I do have footage, but I can't show it on here, because I'd get hundreds of complaints and an equal number of therapy recommendations. So just take my word for it. Energy vampires are of course found in many places and through much of our daily lives. But never more do I encounter them than when I'm being too nice. So, because of this, it is worth remembering some of the key differences between energy vampires and genuine friends. Don't take my word for it. Instead, listen to me from last year. It was once said by me in just a second from now, that you can tell a lot about a person by how they respond to your kindness. And given its unparalleled record of attracting difficult people, being too nice might fancy its chances of winning, though has the most draining relationships debate. But the truth is, and you might find this shocking, genuine friends appreciate your kindness without exploiting it. You can't talk about energy vampires without talking about boundaries. Boundaries are the protective shields that keep the energy vampires from sucking you dry like a docked spaceship, and the only reason I made a sci-fi reference there was to draw your attention to the miniature force field I made from assertiveness techniques while I was recovering from burnout. Anyway, there are several key differences in this department. With energy vampires, the drain is ever so slightly more intense and crucially one-sided. This makes them exhausting and impossible to satisfy. How do I know that? Because I was a people-pleaser once. But whereas energy vampires, that is, Type N people, are decidedly needy, that's not always the case with genuine friends. Sure, Type F friends, the ones whose presence feels like a warm hug, definitely do need support sometimes. But Type G friends, which are easily the more balanced and reciprocal of the two, are supportive. Due to the manner in which each type of relationship feeds your emotional energy, there's also a difference in how they impact your well-being. With genuine friends, the energy flows both ways, thus making it harder to burn out by maintaining the relationship. And the one-sided nature of vampire relationships means that you can do this in theory, but it's not recommended. One of the biggest concerns for nice people, aside from being forced to say no, is the great addiction to helping divide. For nice people, helping others is categorized as a primary source of while it's generally a balanced part of life for emotionally healthy individuals. Moreover, nice people operate on a give until it hurts frequency and others on give within reason. What does all of this mean? Well, let's just say that you want to help everyone in your life, but it doesn't leave you time for self-care, is not sustainable, or is incompatible with your own needs. In that instance, you'll need to run to Boundaries Station to pick up some assertiveness techniques. An assertiveness technique will convert your excessive niceness into healthy kindness. In the event that your assertiveness technique doesn't come with a self-care manual, be sure to also pick up one of these. This self-care manual is magic. It allows you to turn your Type-in nice person tendencies into Type-in healthy helper behaviors. For recovering people pleasers, the same applies, but in reverse. A step-by-step guide to setting boundaries might also be needed to safely navigate relationships. Both are widely available for nice people on Amazon. I'd say the most obvious difference between nice people and assertive individuals is the level of respect they receive. When I first started setting boundaries, I couldn't believe how much more respect I got, and not in a doormat type way. I mean, this was a real change. I just mean it was empowering. But as a nice person, you do unusually have that luxury. because a significant amount of overly nice people are either not respected or not respected well. This is a particular problem when you re-squished in a relationship with someone who takes advantage of your kindness. As with many areas of life, being nice has its own subgenre of psychological versus practical word differences. Take, for instance, the name that we assign to that helpful person who's always there for others, often at their own expense. In psychology and much of the self-help world, this person is known as a people pleaser. This is the word we use for what everyday folks might call a pushover or a doormat. Also, whether it's situated in your personal or professional life, psychologists and laypeople also can't agree on what you call that tendency to always put others first. In psychology, we usually opt for the term codependent. Please note that laypeople, just like viewers on my most recent livestream, are divided on whether this should be pronounced codependency or codep. Either way, most people will often call this behavior being too nice. More often than not, psychologists will call excessive niceness. Laypeople will call people-pleasing being too nice, while psychologists have about 100 words for unhealthy helping behaviors. Chief among these are codependency, enmeshment, lack of boundaries, and self-neglect, and finally, self-care. This is something I've encountered far more in recovery than I have in my people-pleasing days. This is a practice of taking care of your own needs, in which you prioritize your well-being. But the use of self-care might be confusing to some nice people. You might think of self-care, often pronounced selfish by people-pleasing, as an indulgence, a fine example of which is the character of Tom from Parks and Recreation, who famously said, "Treat yourself," that I somehow keep mentioning in my videos just by coincidence. That's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below some of the ways you've learned to balance kindness with self. Thank you to my patrons for literally making this video happen. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please share it with anyone who needs a bit of stoic wisdom. Until next time, stay strong, stay vigilant, and may the odds be ever in your favor.